All right. We are going to have we're going to go through a couple different topics on here.
Yeah, kind of a rapid fire
Uh,
of requested topics.
Well, just kind of generalizing topics based off of questions we get because I get the same questions over and over again, and not in a bad way.
No,
I
not
mean,
at all.
each person would have no idea that the other person was asking
Oh,
the
yeah.
exact same question that they are. But
But when
believe
somebody's
me, when
asking so many times, it's like, this is a topic that needs to be discussed.
But believe me, when I get a message and I read it, even no matter how weird you think it is, believe me, I've been asked the same
Because
question
that's
at least
usually how
three
these come.
times.
They're like, I know this is totally off
Yeah,
the
it's
wall,
like nope,
but
you're not unique. Don't worry about it. Don't
I
worry.
promise you it's go ahead.
So the first issue that I get over and over again, and I've dealt with it before, but I don't even remember the name of the podcast
Yeah,
to
because
tell
it
you.
wasn't like a specific dedicated podcast. I think it was just
And I
like
know
in
I've commented
conversation
on it
on
before.
something else.
And especially since we've been dealing a lot with false teachers lately
Yes.
on the Hillsong, Bethel Front, all that, Whew, that mess.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll go over that. Um, anyway. Oh, the Marty Sampson thing.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I was like trying to think of his name. I
I've
couldn't
been
remember.
doing something.
But and there was a lot of things that were involved with that were pretty regrettable to read. It's just like, man, there's a lot of biblical illiteracy out there today, and there's a lot of lost brothers and sisters out there today that
It's sad.
it's sad. But
Like
I want
genuinely
to make
heartbreaking.
sure that I handle this next person that I'm talking, and I am not clumping him in the category of a false teacher. But this is why I want to be extremely careful. I get asked all the time about Francis Chan.
Mm-hmm.
And before I say anything about it, I will say that I love Francis Chan.
Yep.
Okay, I have learned so much and benefited from Francis Chan's ministry. I mean, a lot. And I get people that message me that say that, I read all of his books. I've listened, I listened to a lot of his older stuff, but lately I'm hearing some bad things about him. And I'm like, well, I mean, unfortunately, this is one of those situations, man, that just makes you sad. And I pray that, we can get this all worked out in the end. I'm just pray for Francis to begin with. But yes, he's been skating down the apostasy hill at a very rapid pace. I'm not calling him a false teacher. I'm not calling, but I think he's caught in this whole just emergent church, new apostolic reformation just type movement, and it is just this doctrine of demons has taken him captive, so much so that it's even affecting his newer sermons and stuff. I wanted to make sure that I was listening to things that were recent, to make my judgment here, or to give my answer, I guess I should say, not judgment.
You don't hold that power. We've seen
I don't have that
before,
power.
everybody,
Yeah.
so.
So yeah, don't message me. Think I'm saying that at all. But I mean, in looking at it, I wanted to make sure, watching his newer stuff to make sure that he wasn't still kind of. And all of this got so bad that I don't know how long ago it was, but he actually had to make a statement on this because he was
Yep.
getting so much, blowback from associating with these teachers that he's associating with. And that's the main problem with him. But listening to his even newer sermons, I played a little clip for you before we started,
Yep.
and it was honestly disappointing. And I couldn't believe that it was coming from him, number one. And number two, he was sounding good on the surface.
Yeah.
Nobody would have noticed this. I even had to explain to Heidi in this particular sermon, I'm like, this is what he's ultimately saying here. And what is he doing? And you even saw, I mean, he has a bottle in his mouth when he starts the sermon. And I'm like, okay, that I get the point that you're trying to make. And it was a good point. And that's why I said Francis is a great teacher.
He really is.
And I really dig the dude. And he's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, it's just, it pains from it. It really does pain me to say anything negative about him. It really does. And I hope everybody knows, like, I mean, Francis was one of those people that when I first started seminary, he was like one of those people that I clung to when I first started. And, so this is somebody that I laughed, I really enjoyed. And then just hearing this newer stuff, I was just like, my Lord, help him. And then going back and reading his statement that he made, because he had gotten a bunch of, this is basically he has to acknowledge people asking him the question of why do you associate with false teachers?
Yeah.
That's literally what he had to address.
Yeah.
And the way that he answered it, you can just go search Francis Chan's statement from his website and you can read his whole statement on it. I don't want to go through it here, point by point, but for me, there's so many holes and I had biblical arguments in here that
the holes are so big you can
I
walk right
had,
through them.
like I was reading it, I'm like, no, this cannot be from somebody that this can't be happening.
Well, he's always been known as such a solid teacher.
That's what the problem is, and this is the problem with holding man up.
Exactly.
And we can't do this. None of us can.
Yep.
Because if we do, it just leaves us in a bad place. I can no longer recommend him just based off of the content of his newer stuff.
Yep.
And the statement and his his excuse for doing these things.
Yeah.
He honestly believes, and if I this is one of those things that I know that people will strongly disagree with me on. But there's no biblical argument to it. But he honestly believes that taking the gospel to people who are lost in false teachers, he honestly believes that coexisting with these false teachers and teaching alongside them is the best way to present the gospel to the lost.
Yeah, not calling them out for
not
being false
calling
teachers
out
and deceiving people.
Instead, palling around with them.
Yeah.
And then he's been known, and this is the one that really, it's online. You can look up the videos. You can read Francis' statements on it. You can see that Francis Chan and Mike Bickle do have somewhat of a relationship. It's not like they're buddy-buddy, but they have a pretty good relationship. And Francis, he has gone and taught at IHOP.
Yeah.
Which IHOP is they are part of the NAR. They're an extremely heretical church. It's hard for some people to see. They're charismatic. There's a lot of, their theology is weird. It's all over the place, really. But with Bickle, the leader over there, he's sitting there when he comes on stage and he's like, I love this guy. You guys have such an amazing, blessed, spirit-filled. Just my jaw hit the floor. Because there's no rebuke. There's no, hey, be careful, brother. Like, there's no.
No, nothing.
Nope. I'm going to reach the lost by standing beside a false teacher.
Well, and that's what made his
Now-
statement on the website just so like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this
I
isn't
don't
even a real
care
statement.
what your personal feelings are, okay? Facts don't care about your feelings.
No.
Okay? So if you're angry with me for what I say about this, I don't care. Show me, not in your opinion, but show me biblically where you can find a teacher palling around with a false teacher. Okay, and we're going to have to go to the New Testament for this. So let's go to the New Testament. Let's go to Paul the Apostles. Show me where Paul would have palled around with a false teacher.
Yeah.
Not a misunderstood teacher. Somebody tried to bring this up to me the other day on an argument that, not an argument, but it was just
Lively
going
debate.
Lively debate. It wasn't an argument. Serving the Lord is not argument. So it wasn't, but it was a lively debate, and they brought it up, and he tried to say that Apollos, Aquila and Priscilla, with Apollos, he was wrong, and yet they pulled him aside. They approved him quietly, and I was like, okay,
Teaching falsities, he didn't know
the
the
problem
Messiah
is
had
you
come.
don't think we named our ministry Aquila and Priscilla? Yes, you don't think I completely understand, but you're taking that completely out of context. Apollos was completely theologically sound. He was missing one key aspect. He only heard one teaching. He didn't hear the other one. This was in the days before the internet.
Yeah, he didn't
and before
know
like
that
mass
the Messiah had
transit,
come.
before you could get around. So he didn't have the complete picture yet. And that's when they heard him and they were like, "Oh, hey dude, come here.
Heads up.
Hey,
Messiah
heads up.
came.
This happened. So remember?" And then he corrected it, and then we
Everything
can
went on
see
from
throughout
there,
through
yeah.
the epistles that he was a very faithful servant and a wonderful teacher.
Yeah.
And me personally, I believe that he wrote Hebrews.
Yeah.
So this is the type of person that comes just from getting one more ingredient. To this is not a false teacher
No.
at all.
Yeah, that's not a Bickle. That's not a White. That's not.
No. So there's no place biblically that you can show me where this happened. Where there is biblical backing is saying to stay away from false teachers at all costs. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter even if they are perfect up into the little tiniest detail. What does Jesus say in Matthew 16? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. A little bit of leaven leavens the whole lump. If you know anything about Old Testament Judaism, you know that when it comes to Passover, they can't have a speck, literally a speck of leaven under the carpet in the third bedroom,
Yep.
because that would completely defile the whole thing.
You have to rid your entire house of every speck of leaven. Every product with yeast and any leavening agent must be completely removed from your home before going into the Passover.
So what do you think the importance is when Jesus is making that comparison?
Yeah.
Beware the leaven. Just the tiniest little bits. In this case, it was somewhat in the case in Jesus in the context of Matthew 16. It was a little bit more obvious there, but it's not always obvious. A little bit of leaven. I think the best case for us today that Paul makes in Acts 20 when he's speaking to the Ephesian elders, he says, "Be on guard for yourselves and for all the flock among which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his own blood. I know that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And from among your own selves men will arise, speaking perverse things to draw away the disciples after them." So, among your own selves, in things like savage wolves will come in among you. That's inside the church. That's where they start, is right here in the church. They start right here, and then they go off. And we have to be careful and beware of that. And the fact that Francis is not warning people of these things, and yet he's teaching alongside them, when we can see that this is a serious matter in Scripture.
Yeah, it's not even being discussed.
It's not even being discussed. So the fact that he's doing this, and he does a lot of it, and that was part of his statement, and I understand it, but no, I mean, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't recommend him anymore, and we all need to pray for him that he realizes that, he's heading down a path that he shouldn't. And like Paul says, I mean, even with tears in his eyes, they walk as enemies of the cross.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you're going to be walking around and palleting around with false teachers, bad company ruins good morals.
Yeah, you're walking as an enemy of the cross.
And that little bit of leaven, that ruins you. It really does. And I don't, like I said, I want to be very careful. I don't want to come off as judgy or attacking by any means, because I think, like I said, as a brother in the Lord, I mean, he is a teacher. He's, very, very important, even, that I would, like I said, even in my walk that I had, he was a good piece of it, because I learned a lot from Francis. And to see this happen is just really, really tragic. But we know that it will happen. Let's just pray that it, for him, turns around. I don't know that you should turn your nose up at his older stuff.
You need to discern.
Anything
that comes with his stuff.
I don't know the answer to that, and I won't answer that for you. I would say to take that in prayer. To prayer. I would just pray about it and see where the Lord leads you with it. For me, it's hard for me to listen to his older stuff now, because I know what now he's doing. So now when I listen to his older stuff, it just bothers me even more, because I'm like, man, what happened?
What are you doing?
And even when he because he started to get the mega church, he was doing really good. Then he left it to start the We Are Church deal. Mm-hmm. And that, in church planning, which he has done a lot of good. And his ministry, like I said, I've benefited from his ministry and learned from his ministry a bunch. He actually, being completely honest, he was actually one of the people that was in school, the part of the home church and starting all of it.
Yeah.
He was part of my seminary's program.
Yep.
To build home churches. So my seminary's used his stuff to plant churches and do stuff with them too. So I don't know if they still do. I haven't checked into that, but they did when I was there. That's how I even got the idea and got really super into it, was watching what Francis did. And then just these, that turn that he took there, just was really disappointing. So be careful. Pray. Take it to the Lord. See what the Lord tells you that you should do. But I know that you should pray for him and stay away from his newer stuff. And I would just try to put him on the back, maybe burner, until he comes around a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. But that's not up to me to tell you that. But for me, I can't listen to them. And we need to pray. So that's what I have to say about that. I'm sure some people will get mad at me and disagree with me, but
Well, it's the internet.
it's
So
the internet.
we'll hear all kinds of interesting things.
And the internet has a well actually button that people love pressing. So
all right, what's our next point?
The second point she asked, it was another question that we had addressed many, many times, is yoga.
Yes.
So I thought you were going to say something. But you
No, I was just.
didn't. Okay, so I'm going to give a short answer on it. The stretches and the different things, yoga can be beneficial. Can be. Yoga can also be an idol. It can also be extremely demonic. It can be a lot of things. Okay, we do have freedom in Christ. Okay, Paul makes that very, very clear that we have freedom, and it doesn't, why we should not submit to these stupid rules of, oh, you can't do that. You're going to get possessed if you touch that.
Yeah.
No, that's not necessarily the case. You have freedom to go ahead and do these things. If you want to do yoga, do yoga. Like I said, it can be beneficial.
Yeah,
but
the
there's
physical stretching exercises of yoga.
Yeah, do it, and there's fine. But like I said, there's so much. It's part of a culture. It's part of an idol. It's part of a demonic practice. There's so much bad that goes along with it. I'm not going to be like, there's a lot of pastors out there that just will anything to do with it. Like, you can't even sit, like, in which I don't think you should do the little, what do you call it? I'm ignorant and I'm going to get made fun of by the internet, but what do you call the little thing?
The Om.
The Om, yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't do that. But you can, I mean, as a form of stretching and relaxing and health.
Let's pull this into some. Your doctor has talked
Right.
about things that you need to do to help in your healing process
Sure.
with your neck injury. Brandon has a condition. It's never going to go away. So we have to look at ways that we can do things to try to help ease, because he's in immense pain all of the time, and it's a disability that he just is having to learn how to live with and make adjustments for. And so his doctor has mentioned now that he thinks he is healed enough that he can start doing things, and he has suggested like looking at some different yoga techniques to help just the stretching and the stuff to help aid in his recovery and his long-term treatment. That's one thing. The practice of yoga, the understanding of yoga, the being involved in yoga, it's demonic.
Yeah, stay away from that.
That's what it is. It's a demonic practice.
And because of that, as a Christian, it's something that you shouldn't publicize.
Yeah, so like you probably shouldn't go join a yoga class. If you want to do
Right.
some stretching techniques,
Sure.
I mean,
If you wanna
would
do it
say
privately.
Pilates or something like
Right.
that where there's none of it. But if
Do
you
it privately.
do it at home, you can do some
Only
stretches.
because we're looking at something, we're being, as Christians and living a Christian lifestyle, we're being an example to the world, and we want to be set apart from the world.
So why put that?
Okay, so yoga is an extremely pagan, well-known pagan practice. So let's maybe not be like so upfront about doing everything about that.
And if you're
let's just say
wanting
that,
to
hey,
do it, well, it's because if you're wanting to do it for the
Not-
exercise, for the stretches,
that's
and for the
not-
things, you don't need to be doing the other stuff. So that's why a lot of people I've seen that they'll, even if they want to do like the exercise part of it, they will do it, but with it on mute. So they're not hearing all of that, because it gets very new agey, very
Right.
spiritual. I mean, it's a very hard one to discern.
and you're not hiding anything.
No.
You're not hiding anything at all.
Just because
So
you're not
just because you're not
publicizing it doesn't
publicizing
mean
it
you're
doesn't
being
mean you're
secretive and hiding it.
You're acknowledging as a Christian, you're saying, yeah, this is a pagan practice. This is something that this could easily make somebody else stumble and think that I
am not hiding in secret and doing this as a pagan practice.
Exactly. So I don't want to give that vibe off, and we as Christians have to do that. So yes, the freedom to do it, yes. Be public about it and be upfront and.
Well, but look at everything else. But it's not just even that there's pagan roots there and the spirituality. So for you, maybe you've reconciled those things and you have nothing to do with that. You do it just for the exercises. Sure. You have it on mute. You're not listening to the stuff. Your conscience is clear when it comes to it. But do we really need pictures of you in your sports bra and your skin tight pants doing your yoga poses? Nobody needs to see that. Yeah, you just put that away. I think there's 2 points here that are really big though. The movement now, this is where we started having a lot of issues with the people in charge of PureFlix, and his wife now is like a certified, Andrea Logan White is like a certified whatever form of yoga teacher and all this stuff she's always promoting. The movement now of taking yoga and slapping Jesus on it and making it Christian yoga. Number one, that just proves that it's a spiritual religious practice. And now you think you can just put lipstick on a pig and call it good. I would have absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever. Yeah. And then to the second point being, if your conscience is not clear and you feel convicted for being involved in any form of yoga, even if it's just doing some stretches
even if
before
you feel
bed
weird or
and you're not watching anything, then that is the Spirit convicting you. Do not have anything to do with it if you feel convicted of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it can't, that's where we're trying to say, and I want to make sure that it was clear in what Brandon just explained, that if you don't feel convicted, you're not involved in it in any form of anything other than using some ways to stretch, because all of the poses have meaning. There's spiritual everything behind all of it. But I also can be reaching over and stretching in a way that feels good for my back, and I'm not technically doing a pose because I don't even know what it's called, but I'm doing, maybe the stretches they are good for neck issues, back issues, whatever you might have, but for you, there's none of that involved in it. I mean, we used to do little bedtime yoga with the kids before bed, and it was just a process of everybody calming down, stretching out, and it was something we all did together before we went to bed. There was nothing involved in it. So if you have a clear conscience on all of it, that's one thing. But if you are bothered in any way, shape, or form, absolutely have nothing to do with any of it because it is serious.
Sure. Yeah, and I just thought of a really random example of the problem with the world seeing these things that you're doing that may be okay.
Yeah.
But I was watching a video last night from Apologia. It was called, get this, 3 Pastors and a Beer.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was Jeff and Doug Wilson, and I don't remember now who the third guy was. I know I just watched it last night, but I do not remember who the third pastor was for the life of me right now. But anyway, they were literally sitting around at a bar, drinking a beer, talking about theology.
Okay.
Which could not be any more Calvinist. It could not be any more Calvinist, which is kind of, I was laughing at. But what I wasn't laughing at is, I was like, now, this is coming from a person, and I'm very open with it. I love beer. Yeah. I do.
You've always been a beer guy.
I really, really do. It's not a problem for me. It's not a struggle. There was definitely a long point in my life where I was willingly overindulging, but it never got, I don't think, out of control. Maybe for a little period of time. Okay, maybe. Okay, so like maybe I have
nothing publicly to say.
All right, so maybe it got a little bad for a little bit, but even then when it got bad,
I don't think bad like what most people.
Yeah, not bad like what most people like. See, I have good friends that have had legit struggle, and I've never had a legit. I come from a
family of alcoholics.
I'm not an alcoholic, so I've never had a legit struggle. So people, when they would hear everything of mine was self-controlled. I always say that I was a willing alcoholic for a few months when I first left the real world and we started this whole thing, right? This was my transition.
This whole thing meaning like working for ourselves, not this whole thing meaning ministry.
Ministry,
just
yeah,
to
no,
clarify.
definitely no. That's
If
a
you
good.
don't know our
that's a good
story, let us
distinction
make
to make.
sure.
That's a
Yeah.
good distinction.
Well,
to
you
make.
said that, and I was like, honey, that
But
was like the worst
I
way
was
to say
willingly an alcoholic for a good period of time there because I didn't have anything.
that. You went from living a very corporate, uptight life to us working for ourselves, kind of breaking free from the rat race, breaking free from the 9 to 5, and you was like your spring break.
Yeah, it really was. So I did. I mean, I took every advantage that I could of having a good time. But so I have all that to say. I have no problem with it, except for obviously this is clear to us that if this causes another believer to stumble or to be offended in some way,
Cut it out.
cut it out.
Paul says
Don't
he'd never
do
eat
it.
meat again if it's
Yeah,
gonna
if
cause you
if
to-
it causes another brother to stumble, don't do it. Now, people take that out of context and say, "Well, see, this shows that you should never ever do it," because that can make one other well, in front of that other Christian or publicly in front of
Sure.
people,
Making
absolutely,
it a spectacle.
making a spectacle of it, absolutely. Which, and a servant, I don't believe that a servant of God, this is the type of portrayal that we want to have. And I enjoy beer, and I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking it. But I was
Your
sitting
doctor
there,
even recommended it. For your
yeah,
kidney
even for
stones,
kidney
yeah.
stones, yeah. Which when he said that, I'm not, and I have that. I wish I had it on record, but I was sitting there, and that was the happiest advice I ever got.
When the doctor tells
Doctor
you go
says,
home
"Man,
and drink some
hey,
beer,
maybe
it'll
you
make
should take a
the
real
kidney
light
stones
beer and drink a real light beer. They're good for kidney stones." I was like, okay, boom, done.
as a chronic kidney stone
No
survivor.
And anyway,
But
so
to set it
I
up and
don't,
make a
but to set it up like some
yeah.
spectacle and to celebrate it and make it idle, and we can't do
Yeah.
that. But I was sitting there watching the video and I was going, I don't know how I feel. I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't think this puts off a good vibe.
Yeah.
I don't think three pastors should be on camera.
Again, if you and a pastor friend, if you're having dinner or
Sure,
whatever,
there's
and you
nothing
want to have
wrong
a beer,
with it.
that's perfectly fine.
And-
There's nothing wrong
And
with
I'm
that.
not, and this is where some people even get crazy. If you're a pastor and you want to go out to dinner at a public restaurant, regardless of your status, you shouldn't be drunk and acting a fool like Carl Lentz and Justin Bieber doing tequila
Oh my
shots.
gosh, yeah.
But you also can't, I don't think that you should be held to just sitting there drinking water at dinner with your family. I think if, like these people that get like, well, he was caught out having a beer. It's like, well, yeah, he was out to dinner. He can live
allowed
his
to
own
have a
personal life, and that's okay.
If he's out to dinner with someone that he knows struggles
Now-
with alcohol,
right,
and
then
he's
we're in a
drinking beer, like,
completely different,
totally
then we're in
level.
a different conversation.
But I think that's.
I'm
but
not
that was your
even that
point.
legalistic. But sitting there recording it and putting this out as part of our ministry, like, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think I like that. So I'm looking on the comments of it, and there is at least 15 comments on there that they're like, brothers, love you to death, but I came out of alcohol, and they're saying that, and I'm like, man.
And the moment that one of those comments comes up, that video should be taken down.
I agree with that one. It doesn't matter.
One.
One out of, they have, I don't know how many 100,000 subscribers, but one person that says that out of all of them, I'm like, dude,
Remove it.
you gotta go. You can't do that, because there's people in here that are struggling, that are rebuking you, saying, hey, I don't think you should do this, because I've had a struggle with it. And I don't think that people get to pull that card all of the time, right? That's why that's why I brought up the out to dinner thing. I don't think that that's always fair. So I don't think that like a pastor should be, held to, if he wants to go out to dinner with his family and have a beer. If you see me at Outback Steakhouse, you're going to see me with a beer. I guarantee
Okay,
you.
but I
But
think I don't
I'm
know. I
not
feel like
going
the way
to
you're
put-
saying this might be kind of coming out the wrong way. A man of God is always a man of God.
Absolutely.
Regardless of who he
Absolutely.
is. So you in private,
Right.
okay, we're not going to sit down and hold our Saturday live feed with you throwing back a few beers. We're not
No.
going to do that. because that would be inappropriate. I think people get the idea, though, that the moment that you're not willing to post something publicly on your social media, it's like, oh, well, what do you have to hide? No, just I'm allowed to have private private
I have
things.
zero
like,
skeletons.
Right? Like,
I'm just
honey,
allowed
but it's okay if I were to walk around in a bikini in front of my husband. It would not be okay for me to be posting those pictures publicly or wearing a bikini in a video or something like that, right? So we understand the difference in that. It's the same way here. And so if Brandon, he's not going to be drinking, something like that, but you come over Saturday while we're having dinner or whatever, or grilling out, he's having a beer or two. There's nothing wrong with that. So why would that not be then when you go out to dinner? That was your example. I just want to make sure it's coming across clear. So when you go out to dinner,
example is,
and you order a beer with dinner, that's fine.
I'm the same person.
Are you drunk in the restaurant?
Absolutely not.
If somebody is there with you and you are ministering to them or just enjoying fellowship with them and that's somewhere that they struggle, no, you're not
absolutely
going to be sitting
never
there
no
drinking with them.
Right.
But so for them, if the Apologia guys, if they wanted to sit down and hang out as fellow buddy pastors and have a beer, awesome, that's fine. But to be recording that
that's where my problem was, and putting that out there as part of your ministry, and that's what I said earlier. That's where my issue that I have with it, and that was the example that I was making. So with the yoga thing, just like, what if people are struggling with people,
and we say this all the time, the new age stuff is huge, and it is huge in the Christian church right now, and why it's such a just wolf lying ready to attack is because people don't realize it.
Let's let that lead us into the third topic that we're going to talk about, Enneagram. Okay,
it's such a big one right now.
This is one that I actually disagree with one of our questions on, which I won't even use them for this one. Not that I not even use them.
They were just very lenient.
I just read it and I was like, I don't know that I agree with that. And I asked you about it, and I was like, I
read it before.
And I asked Heidi, I was like, have you read it? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, yeah, I didn't like. I was like, I didn't either. I didn't agree with it. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
And then I read some other sources that were kind of saying the same things along the line of Got Questions. Me personally, I don't like it.
I don't like it at all.
I really don't.
No.
I think I understand what it is.
And for you guys, anybody who doesn't know what the Enneagram is, it's this basically the idea that people will tell you it is it's a personality test, but it's this very detailed test that you go through, and it tells you where you fall on the spectrum. And if you spend any time, especially on Instagram or Facebook, everybody is. I mean, even the Christian women are obsessed with this Enneagram. They're figuring out where their kids fall on it, where their spouse falls on it. And now we know how our family can work because I know where everyone falls on the Enneagram. And
it's interesting, nonetheless.
Very complex.
And it's interesting, and it's honestly a well-designed system to label personality.
Yes.
It very much is.
Yeah.
And
it's like a super detailed, those little magazine quizzes
you
used to do to like find out which one you are.
It's super innocent on the surface level of what it does and what it is. And I don't want to sound like tinfoil hat Heidi over here, but I don't like it. I think that we have to understand that these things nothing is new under the sun. So that any of the things that are arising now aren't anything new. We just have to be able to categorize it or find out where it was. To me, I believe that this falls in the line of just mysticism, which was the central thing that ran the Greek and Roman empires. I mean, they both were they were extremely mystic in their different gods, and I mean it was if you know anything about the first century, I mean this is what Paul was constantly fighting, these Jewish mystics. That he fought Gnosticism. So I think that fits somewhere along those lines. just based off of what it is. It's very spiritual. It's
The
very not.
Well, and this is the thing that I feel like no Christian woman. Well, I have one friend who talked about it. Her and I kind of had a discussion about it, but I feel like for the
Did
most
she
part,
disagree with you?
no, she ended up doing it. She ended
Uh-huh.
up doing the quit. She still kind of agreed. She was like on that fence, and then she did it, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm exactly where I thought I would be. Like, whatever, this is stupid." But everybody, I think, is failing to understand or just completely ignoring. But they're kind of like yoga. It's like saying that yoga is just an exercise program. No, it isn't. It's part of a religious practice, and we know that that's demonic.
Right.
We know that's what it is.
Right.
So again, if you're going to do it strictly as stretching exercises with
Sure.
nothing else whatsoever brought into it and your conscience is clear, you have no conviction on that, okay. That's between you and God. Like, you have to make that decision. Same thing here. If you've done the Enneagram, are we saying that you have sinned and you need to
No.
go? Absolutely not.
I just say stay away
But
from
you
it.
need to understand that there is a very spiritual,
Yeah.
demonic activity, connection, all of that stuff to it. And to see the way that I'm speaking of only Christian women that I have seen that have done this, I mean, they hold it's all about what your number is. It's all about where you fall. I mean, they're adding it into their their Instagram profile to define who they are. Like, now you can know about me because this is where I fall on the Enneagram. Like, they're giving it all of this power and then acting like it's no big deal. And it's like, so you're telling me that there's all this spiritual stuff connected to it, some really wonky, crazy, demonic stuff here. You're all about your number. What number are you? We're trading numbers and we got to know all the things, all about the Enneagram, where everything falls. You're adding it to your profile. Like, it's literally on everything. You practically walk around wearing a t-shirt that says, "Don't worry, I'm Enneagram, whatever." And we're just supposed to be like,
That's
"Oh,
okay.
no big
Don't
deal.
worry
It's
about
fine
it.
because I love Jesus." Okay. Okay.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't agree with that, and I don't. I mean, God Questions even said it would be. It's semi beneficial.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I mean, I don't. I mean, whatever. If you do it, cool. If you want to do it just because you're curious, whatever. It's not gonna possess you. But stay away from that stuff because it's, it's, it's just something that you don't want to mess with. Just better to stay away from it, I guess, is better way to say it. But
Yeah. And I just don't get, I mean, the stuff it comes from.
if you if you have it reconciled with the Lord,
Do you read uh, the Gospel Coalition on the Enneagram? Their write up for it. Where did Enneagram come from? Some proponents of the Enneagram attribute it to the Desert Fathers, Kabbalists, Sufi mystics, Chaldeans, and other ancient groups.
Chaldean.
Sorry. Claims for an ancient origin, however, have never been substantiated. The earliest mention of the Enneagram is found in the writings of Russian occultist P.D., some name I can't pronounce, who attributes it to his teacher, the Greek-American occultist George, another name I can't pronounce. He considered the Enneagram a symbol of the cosmos, but made no connection with it to personality types. It was left to another occultist, Oscar something, to connect the Enneagram to personality. He claimed to have discovered the personality type meaning of the Enneagram when it was taught to him by the archangel Metatron while he was high on mescaline. One of his students, a Chilean-born psychiatrist, another occultist, was the first to connect the 9 points of the Enneagram to 9 basic personality traits. In the 1970s, students of the Naranjo spread the Enneagram to various Catholic communities, especially in mystical and contemplative circles. Some of the promoters of the Enneagram included the former Jesuit Don Riso, the Franciscan friar Richard Rohr, and late Benedictine nun Suzanne Zurcher. In 1997, Risco co-founded the Enneagram Institute, an organization that helped bring the Enneagram to a broader audience. I mean, if those few little points there
That's kinda
don't
creepy.
make you just
do they
like,
go on to?
Oh, yeah, they go on to tear it
not
apart.
like it. I assume.
oh yeah, but if like those foundational points right there are not alarm bells and red flags just like blaring in your head, I would maybe research into things a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that I definitely don't want to come off like I'm some kind of expert on it. and I don't want to, misrepresent it in any
Okay,
way.
but hold on, let me share this. Why are some evangelicals opposed to the Enneagram? Evangelicals who favor the Enneagram tend to be younger and either do not know or downplay its history. They consider it to just another personality typology. In contrast, evangelicals who oppose the Enneagram tend to be older and associate the Enneagram with the occult or with the Catholic spirituality movement. Those who oppose it are likely to have first seen books on the Enneagram in the New Age section of the bookstore, because that's what it is. The symbol is also reminiscent of the pentagram, which is associated with various occults from Wiccans to Satanists. But anyways, so going through. Yeah, because it is. It's this movement where either you're like young,
Oh,
it's
was
hip,
that
and
they
it's cool.
explain it?
Yeah,
Okay,
so like
got it.
either like
I get
everybody
you.
is all into it and it's cool, or you're just like this old fuddy-duddy who's like, Satan bad, and don't want anything to do with it. But again, that's where we say you look into it, understand what this is, where it comes from, what its roots are, and then make your decision based off of that.
Yeah. If you're,
I
if
don't
you
like it.
if you and God are okay with it, then that's between you and him.
But again, you're letting a lot of things be okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think we
Right.
just have to weigh those things, because where's that line? Where's that line of like, yeah, I know that's pagan and that's bad and that's demonic and that's evil, but I like it, so I just won't pay attention to that part and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you have
scripture's
to be
very
careful.
clear how we don't have anything to do with this stuff. I'm not saying that your kids shouldn't be allowed to, play make believe because that's not real, so therefore it's witchcraft. No, they're just being kids and they're jumping around, they're playing. Like,
Right.
they think ponies can have wings. What do I know? I mean, they're kids. But what is that line of the things that you will let come in and let be okay, regardless of the true? I mean, we know that these spiritual principalities, we know that these demonic powers, they're real and they are all around us. They're more real than the physical world we see. So at what point do you say, hey, there's a line, I'm not crossing over it? But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. So I would stay away from it. I think that was the last question. So yeah, I think that was all of
For today
all of
anyways.
the most common points that I just kind of put together for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on those things. But let's just remember to keep Francis in prayers, because this is, this is once a very, very solid teacher.
Yeah.
A very, very
It's
good
heartbreaking to
teacher,
see.
and definitely don't want to see him going down that path. So let's just keep him in prayer and make sure to just be sober-minded and watchful at anything that you
Everything.
come across.
Absolutely, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.